Hey scholars, this video is on two subjects. The first is going to be supply chain management. The next is inventory control. Let's start with supply chain management. Key things that you need to know. It's as I said, it is one of the 10 OM decisions that operation managers tend to have to deal with on a daily basis. So it's critical in the life of most operations managers and can make or break your business. We looked at a number of case in points in class, largest of all being Walmart, where their supply chain and the way they manage that supply chain really is what's made Walmart who Walmart is, and the critical nature of them knowing not only who their suppliers are, but their suppliers knowing what's expected of them to be a supplier of Walmart is really more than anything what's made them successful there. And we talked then about, how do you qualify a supplier? If you look in my book, book 1 on page 151, you'll see how Walmart qualifies its suppliers. The next thing is technology. Does the supplier have sufficient and adequate technology to be able to keep up with your organization when it comes to what's expected of them? Next is, are they willing to allow periodic audits of their operation so that you know that they are in compliance with what it is you expect them to do? And last is, do they support just-in-time processing, JIT? With suppliers, it's important that an organization has a clear strategy. So what are some different strategies that you might have regarding how you get your products to market and the things that come up to actually having a product that you can take to market? And we looked at vertical integration. We looked at many suppliers or few suppliers. We looked at joint ventures as the primary 4 different areas where a business or organization could make a strategic choice in terms of how they want to go forward with a supplier relationship. We looked at 3 acronyms. They were ERP, EDI, and MRP. ERP stands for Enterprise Resource Planning, EDI stands for Electronic Data Interchange, and MRP stands for Materials Requirement Planning. And you should know those 3. You should know more about them. They're all in my book in the supply chain chapter. You should be able to be comfortable with the definition of those and what they all are. We looked at ISO 9000 and ISO 14000. And that's a standards board. The ISO is a standards board where they'll basically be able to let an organization know that this company has essentially passed at least a certain level of quality criteria and is considered ISO 9000 compliant or ISO 14000 compliant. We talked a little bit about logistics and how critical logistics can be in helping an organization to achieve the final leg, typically in getting the product to the customer, but often it's getting the product to you, the organization that's going to eventually produce something with whatever is being supplied, whether it's a finished good or delivering a finished good or delivering a work in process. And we looked at shipping, warehousing, third-party logistics in general. So be familiar with those. We looked briefly at inventory turnover as a ratio that's critically important. It, of course, is defined as cost of goods sold divided by inventory. So what does that tell us? It tells us how many times a year does your inventory turn. The higher that number is, the more we like it, which means basically the less inventory that we're carrying. Next, let's talk about inventory management. Inventory management, the first thing we talked about is this Kanban system. Kanban, Japanese, stands for card, means card. So I described that on the board, but basically it's a bin, for lack of a better term. And in the bin, you've got items that you don't want to have to do a physical count of inventory, like nuts or bolts. And they're not very expensive items. You just want to make sure you have enough on hand to perform whatever functions need to be performed. So when the bin gets down to a certain level, the red line starts to show. That's when you know, as the operational person, the guy running the machine, grab the card out of the bin, pick it up, sign it, send it over to procurement, and they'll make sure somebody comes by and refills your bin for you. That's the Kanban system. We looked at a couple of different categories of inventory. We looked at transit, buffer stock, and safety stock inventory, and we looked at cycle inventory. Briefly on those, transit inventory is, as the name implies, a inventory that is being transported. It's in the logistics chain someplace and it's getting moved to you. Buffer or safety stock inventory is inventory above the cycle inventory that's required for the current period. So if you think you're going to sell 1,000, but just to be on the safe side, you want to hold 1,100 of something because you might have a rush on it, that extra 100 above the 1,000 would be the buffer or the safety stock. The 1,000 that you would normally expect to sell would be your cycle inventory, or how much inventory you plan to sell in the cycle. We also talked about how inventory is categorized on the balance sheet. There's three primary ways it's categorized. The first is raw materials, the second is WIP, work in process, and the third is finished goods. And they're all critical to an accountant and somewhat critical to you as a operations manager to know not only how much inventory you have, but how it's categorized. We looked at the EOQ equation. EOQ we defined as the square root of 2 times D times O over H, and D is the annual demand, O is the cost to place an order, and H is the annual carrying cost for that item in inventory. And essentially what it tells you is how many components of whatever we're ordering should we order at a time. And there's some pretty clear examples in the text, and I've looked at all your homework, those of you that submitted it, and it seems that everybody pretty much has that figured out. It's not a very complicated model, but it's given some basic assumptions. It's a pretty accurate model. Now, one of the basic assumptions is that demand is constant, it doesn't change, and it's just not the real world. Carrying cost is constant, it doesn't change, etc. But again, it gives us a ballpark number that we can have that tells us how much we should be ordering. And the last thing on inventory that we reviewed briefly in class was JIT, or just-in-time inventory. Talked about that in relation to the automobile industry. That's it for this video.